eternity later.
If you're sitting there wondering why I showed you how I actually make coffee, why I'm drinking coffee, it's because today is all about coffee. We're going to be specifically talking about Starbucks and how Starbucks attracts, retains, delights, and makes advocates of all of you without even you realizing it. So today is Funnel Friday. Stick around. Welcome to another episode of Funnel Friday. I'm Nick Williams, founder of DeepBridge Consulting. It's good to have you. So today, like I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about Starbucks. And this is one of those funnels that it's impossible to realize you're in it. Starbucks does such a good job, especially being so mobile first, that they've taken over, they're actually surpassing and holding on to the lead as number one app-based pay service. They're beating the likes of Apple, beating the likes of Samsung. So if you're beating companies like that, you're obviously in great company, you're above great company. And the reason why they're able to do such a good job on their mobile-based payment is because they've created such a streamlined, powerful funnel. It's one of those vortexes that you're in, and I myself am also guilty of this. You don't even know. And that's why I think it's healthy to break it down. So as mentioned, we're gonna be talking about attracting, retaining, delighting, and making advocates. We're gonna start with session one. And section one is going to be all about attracting customers. And so Starbucks actually breaks down their funnel into 4 key steps along the customer journey. And they do a really good job of understanding where the most powerful parts of the journey are so that they can make implementations. They can step in and create lifelong loyal customers. And they break it down in those 4 key ways we just talked about. And the first one, how they attract you. And the attracting you comes down to the product. Starbucks is one of those places that if you actually compare them to your local, your local barista, you go to your local coffee shop, they've got actually on average, statistically, way more products than any of the comparative competition. And the reason for that is, and Starbucks does a really good job of creating buying instances out of situations in which coffee doesn't actually serve that salient or relevant purpose. What I mean by that is if you typically go to your coffee shop around the corner, there may be an Americano, there's mochas, there's even iced coffees, but going down the list, there's really not a ton of variation. And I think as time goes on, more and more of these coffee shops are understanding that providing variation, and not just variation on flavor, adding hazelnut is not the same thing as creating an entirely new drink. But the key thing that they're understanding is creating instances in which, like a Frappuccino, that is powerful because what is that really? Is that a dessert? Is that a morning drink? Is that something that goes with dinner? Is that something when you just need a snack? And so Starbucks has done a really good job of creating instances outside of just the breakfast situation in which Starbucks is actually appropriate. So Starbucks does a really good job of attracting their customers in by creating not only coffee that's good, but coffee that tastes good and you can go to Starbucks basically at any time of the day. If I go, it's 5 p.m. I could find a reason to go to Starbucks right now. You could actually go and get something, one of their teas. You can go and get the strawberry drinks, which have less caffeine. So Starbucks does a really good job in this part of the funnel at just getting people through the door, because they know once they get people through the door, that's where they really start to hit home runs, which is step 2 of their funnel. Now that Starbucks actually has their new customer through the door by using their different tasting drinks, by using the situations in which they can attract the customer in across the day, they are able to provide a tremendous level of customer care that, again, it's one of those things that you don't really notice that go a really long way. And one of the key ways that they're known to do this, and it's similar to Best Buy, is that they always write your name on the cup. Now, this is one of those things that seems so incredibly small, but it is very powerful, and it goes a long way when you think about your business and the kind of service you're providing. But something as tiny as writing your name on the cup has applications across most industries. And why I say it's like Best Buy, and it is because Best Buy does a really good job of understanding the fact that they get showroomed a lot. And so this is an analogy that we talk about a lot at DeepBridge Consulting, and Best Buy did a lot to cope with the fact that they get showroomed. People go into their store, then they shop on Amazon, they order online. People come in and try it out. So what they do when you walk through the door at Best Buy is they say your name. And the reason they say your name is because, number one, it personalizes the situation. But number two, it's a theory of reciprocity. You feel like you have skin in the game. You've talked to someone. Go to your local Best Buy if you have one near you, and I promise you, the second you walk through the door, that person's gonna talk to you, and it's not for security. That person, no matter how, I want you to go test it out, put both hands over your ears, make it so that you're clearly busy. They will say something to you. And they do that, again, because they want you to have skin in the game. It's harder to walk out with nothing if you've talked to everyone. Have you ever been in the store and asked a lot of questions and felt horrible walking out with nothing? That's why Best Buy does that. And Starbucks, to a certain degree, does the same thing. So you go in, you order your cup of coffee, they end up writing your name on the side, and all of a sudden, that is not just a coffee you can get from anywhere. That's a coffee you got from Starbucks. It's personalized. It feels like a nice touch that they did for you. Now in return, you give them back your loyalty. Why is it that no other, for the most part, a lot of these bigger chains, a lot of your local coffee shops don't actually do the same thing? Starbucks understands that people are always going to undervalue this at first glance. But the reason people, and this is the small things, that if you're not a loyal customer, this is something that it kind of blows you away. Like, look, oh my gosh, it's got my name on it. Other people see you with a Starbucks cup with your name on it. It doesn't, in terms of utility, have a lot of value, but what it does for you psychologically is huge. And that goes above and beyond. So Starbucks provides a great situation, a great experience, and that goes above and beyond just the cup. So you can actually sit in Starbucks. You can have Starbucks music. You can Starbucks has a Spotify playlist. So Starbucks at the second phase, once they attract their customer, they are able to do a really good job of serving that customer. As small things as offering, free Wi-Fi and Spotify music, and even to the most mundane things like writing your name on the cup. But that goes psychologically a very long way. And I challenge you, if you haven't noticed your name on the cup, first of all, that's a true statement, but obviously. But I do challenge you to go check out that Best Buy thing, because it is something that I think Best Buy does really well. And when you talk about the applications of this funnel, they are far and much wider than just a cup of coffee, and they can apply to your business. The challenge to you is, how do you make, if you're not serving coffee, which most of us aren't, how do you make the customer care so personal that they feel like it's a one-to-one relationship with you? Even if you're like offering a SaaS product. I, for instance, offer a SaaS dashboard. That doesn't mean I can talk to every single person, but it could be as simple as me coding something in that says their first name. It could be something as simple as I can do the due diligence, and unless you're getting thousands and thousands of customers, you can go in and make a personalized video, which I absolutely do. And I go even further than that. In being that we're consulting, it's not like we're talking to thousands of people a day to talk about our services, but we are talking to dozens. And if someone turns out to be a serious prospect, what we end up doing is making a personalized custom video for them. So if you reach out to us and it seems like promising that it could be a good relationship both ways, a very quick 60-second video goes a very long way to a customer. They feel like you care, because in essence, you do care if you sit down and do that. You do care if you sit down and make those personal touches to serve the customer. And Starbucks will never forget that, no matter how many millions of people they serve. Which takes us to the third point, the third stage of the funnel, which is convenience. They were able to successfully attract you in. Once they got you in, they served you. Now that you're served, they deliver a level of convenience that you can no longer live without. So you're through Starbucks doors. They've given you a level of customer service in which you're blown away with. And if you're not blown away, subtly, subconsciously, you're at least appreciating. Now it's time for them to really start pushing this along. And, steps 1 and 2, because it's such a commodity, a cup of coffee, in terms of the lifetime value of the customer, it is pretty large, but it's something that, for the most part, people aren't terribly loyal, and they don't, it's not a habitual thing to go to the same coffee shop and get the same coffee. For the most part, the average customer is gonna think coffee is coffee. And that's for most of Americans. Now, there's upper echelons and different kinds of consumers that appreciate coffee differently. But for the coffee lover, Starbucks, and even for the non-coffee lover, Starbucks does a great job across both of those spectrums of providing a level of convenience that it doesn't really matter if you love coffee or you don't love coffee, because they understand that they can't compete with smaller places on their ability to source their coffee. Now, they're Starbucks. They can tell whatever marketing message they want. They've got a lot of money behind their organization in order to push that message. But Starbucks, at the end of the day, let's get real. They're not doing, I can think of a couple other local coffee companies that do more impressive things in terms of sourcing their beans. But Starbucks is able to say, well, look, there's one thing no one can compete on, and that's the ability to develop this app. And their application, the Starbucks app, obviously you have it if you go to Starbucks. And this isn't sponsored by Starbucks, but I do encourage you, if you don't have the app, to go ahead and start using it. It's the same with Chipotle, but both of those companies, to be frank, have focused in on one key area, and that is delivering convenience. Because if you are able to get a customer in and then deliver on a major headache and pain point for the customer, or at least maybe they don't even know that it's a pain point, but Starbucks illuminated an opportunity that how they behave, their understanding of customer insights, they created a blue ocean in which now that they behave that way, their competition now has a problem, because if they can't deliver the thing that Starbucks is now delivering, they have an issue. So Starbucks invented a problem and an avenue and a channel for their competition to have an answer to. And that's a wonderful problem to have for Starbucks, not for the competition. So Starbucks is able to play on a platform that none of their customers can, and that's the app. The apps like that are probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. We don't have the ability as entrepreneurs, and even if you're a larger company, it's not always feasible or prudent to go out and create apps like that. That doesn't mean that you can't deliver a level of customer experience that doesn't far exceed your competition. Now, the customer experience always comes down to things like service and convenience. If it makes the customer's life better, you're going to have that much more of in terms of perception, you're going to have a more powerful experience, a better experience overall as it relates to the customer's perception. So focusing in on, once they actually come through the door, focusing on a service, and then convenience in terms of your tech. If you don't go that route, convenience in terms of, for instance, payment. So you could be a company like DeepBridge Consulting. We don't chase our customers for their whatever it is. It could be twice a year. It could be every month. It could be twice a month. Whatever the case may be, we don't go out and chase our customers. We create something in the upfront that has us collect payment automatically, no questions asked. We found that when you do that, as a consultant, you can often sometimes feel like a bill chaser. You can work with a company has a project fee of $210,000, for instance. We had just had a pretty large project last quarter, and it took about 3 months, and it spanned into another fiscal year. So we had to go through all this process, but it was a big headache, and we fixed that going forward, so that when we got a new customer that was very similar, it didn't matter. At the end of the day, we still had their records, we had their accounts, so that it was automatically billed. And instead of going after that money and feeling like a bill collector, big or small, it could be tiny. It could be something on your SaaS dashboard, for instance. Automate your payments so that you don't feel like you're ruining the relationship and it's all about the money. And you can get down to talking about brass tacks and the important stuff, growing the business. And it's not surrounded and shrouded in stress of payment. So how do you create a system in which you're focusing on ease of convenience so that your customers don't even think about it? And that's the other major benefit, is it doesn't even feel like you're spending your money. And I know a lot of people, we talk a lot about this in our Amazon Funnel Friday. The one of the smartest things Amazon ever did was one-click pay. if you don't have one-click pay, I definitely don't advise you go do this, because one-click pay, essentially, if you tap buy, it's just gonna go. They've eliminated the cognitive dissonance. They've eliminated these objections, because all you have to do is tap a button. It's the same as the little dash features. How do you make convenience? How do you make buying your product much more convenient? And Starbucks not only made paying for your Starbucks that much more convenient, that is where we're actually going to jump into the last phase. And the last phase, which is creating advocates, but we're going to call it also their savings phase. So we just talked about how Starbucks we're getting the customers down into the funnel, we're attracting the customers, then we're serving the customers up. So now we're going to get into step 4. So as just a recap, as we talked about, they've attracted you, they've retained you, they've delighted you, and now it's time for them to make advocates of you. So if you're this deep in the Starbucks funnel, it's very likely that you're going to become a lover, an advocate. And what they do is, deeper you go down the Starbucks funnel, the more they're going to incentivize your purchase behavior. So what they do is they gamify their purchases, and they will give you opportunities in which you can continue to earn. And they end up touching on 2 very key important principles of consumer behavior and actually economic models. So they touch on the theory of reciprocity, and they touch on the sunken cost theory, both of which are highly powerful consumer behavior tactics that, if used correctly and harnessed, they can weaponize a lot of future purchases. So the theory of reciprocity, they touch on similar to the customer service. What they end up doing is, if they give you something like more free bonus points, more of the stars they give you, they'll give you a free cup of coffee. The more they give you, the more you feel like subconsciously or consciously that you need to return to the store and continue to give them your loyalty. Now, again, that's a very subconscious, for the most part, piece of consumer behavior, but it is powerful nonetheless. The more Starbucks gives, the more often a customer will come back to feel like they need to compensate for that. And so what that ends up looking like is Starbucks, all the while, their cost of acquisition is going to be a little bit higher. They're giving away free cups of coffee, but they know it's a vicious cycle and a positive one for them. The deeper you go down this rabbit hole, the more you end up purchasing. And at a certain point, there may be a diminishing return, so they don't have to give you as much, which I've actually noticed. We did a study looking at some of the people here on the team who are actually buying Starbucks habitually. The more points they've amassed, the less opportunities, the less times they've gotten these random bonuses and free drinks. So it just feels like at a certain point, once they've been a certain level of member, Starbucks doesn't even bother giving them these occasional free drinks. They just have to continue to earn more points. But on the other end, the more the stars they amass, the more rewards they actually end up getting. So it's a win-win. So Starbucks has done a really good job of incentivizing purchase behavior through this reward system. And so if they're able to create situations through the theory of reciprocity, they've also done a really good job of figuring out how to do this through sunken cost theory. And I liken this a lot to the Subway card. And a lot of millennials in particular, but most people remember the Subway card. It was one way that got me through high school, right? And how the Subway card worked was you had this card that actually kept track, and they were punch cards, believe it, back in the day. Now it's been replaced with applications and things like that to create our lives a lot better. But what they would do is they would punch every single time you went and ordered something from Subway. They would punch a new hole in your card. And you would look down at that, and there'd be a tangible representation. There'd just be something remind you, look, there's actually a reward waiting for me. I've already gone to 2, I might as well go to 6. So you'll find yourself oftentimes, and you're probably thinking in your head you've done this, even if you don't really want Subway and you've got 2 punched or out of 4, or even 3 punched out of 4, you're gonna go just because you got 1 left. You might as well. And so human beings in situations of purchase intent, they will often not associate certain emotions in proportion to the value that they actually exist in real life. And what I mean by that is the fact that you have quote unquote 1 punch left has nothing to do with the value of that good or commodity in terms of what it means or the benefits of your life. It's the exact same as if the card didn't exist. So in a vacuum, none of that matters. And so in this situation, that purchase was purely motivated, or in the very least skewed, by the fact that this idea that you've already gone this far. And another good analogy was there was a study that showed a Hershey Kiss was, they had a table out and they had a Hershey Kiss that was 1 penny, and a Lynch chocolate bar or a piece of a truffle or something like that was 15 cents. Every person that walked by, for the most part, people ended up getting the Lynch chocolate, the piece of chocolate, for 15 cents over the Hershey Kiss, which was $1. Now, there's 14 cents more, right? And in terms of the statistics, if we dropped it by 1 penny, nothing should change. If that now is the Lynch chocolate bar is 14 cents and the Hershey Kiss is 1 penny, all of a sudden, technically the math shouldn't change, but all of a sudden they notice in the experiment that almost everyone got the Hershey Kiss, because they're not correctly associating this loss aversion. You're giving something up all of a sudden. Now you don't have to do that. You can just get something for free. And so it's another example of how consumers will typically not associate these emotions, this loss emotion, or even in this situation in which they feel like there's a future benefit to be had, they're not correctly assigning the value to that. So what places like in that situation, the Starbucks or the Subway card, and what Starbucks does really good is they will actually incentivize these purchases by giving you more and more of these star bonus points. And if you feel like you've got 75 star bonus points out of 125, and all you have to do is go and if you get one more coffee, and it actually says that on the application, it says if you get one more coffee, you get something free. Do you want to go ahead and do it? Well, I mean, I didn't really have a need to get Starbucks, but going back up to the product number 1 in the funnel, they've given you a situation. You're like, it's not the morning, but sure, I guess. Like, I want to get free coffee in the morning tomorrow, so I might as well go get like a pink drink or something. Like, I don't want Starbucks at 7 p.m., but I might as well get it because it just puts me over the top. So they just created a really good funnel in which they can serve at all of the major stepping points in the customer journey, but at the same time, they're perpetuating and adding incentives and value all along the way that take you deeper into the funnel. So it's something that's working middle out essentially. And so that's why the Starbucks funnel is very unique and powerful, but they're relying on getting the customer and serving them, delivering a really good product, and then a really good experience to cap it all off. So that way, the cost of acquisition in terms of their menu and their the flavors, and then the barista, how good the barista has to actually be, it can be a little bit of a hurdle, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, once they get you in, they're not going to lose you. So their retention is high because they're focused on the lifetime value. And for Starbucks, for a Starbucks lifelong member, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of revenue if you're deciding to be very loyal to Starbucks, which in essence, the coffee's the same. It's the exact same. I hate to tell you, this freezing cup of coffee I'm about to drink through this conversation we just had, it's going to taste the exact same as if it was Starbucks. Maybe not, but it doesn't matter because the funnel that Starbucks deploys is powerful. And at the end of the day, I want you to take away is, regardless of if you can't pull off some of the things in the executions that some of these major companies can, hopefully you can watch these things and go, yeah, okay, I can see how delivering a convenient experience, not serving coffee, but I don't have an app, but so I want you to head nod along. And if you have any questions, just reach out to Nick Williams at DeepBridgeConsulting.com about any of these things. And this was a really fun one to actually dig through and look at the research. So we're going to post a pretty good blog on it, a pretty long blog on this. So check it out. And again, yeah, if you have any questions, Nick Williams at DeepBridgeConsulting.com. Go ahead and subscribe and go check out our membership area at DeepBridgeConsulting.com/join, and you'll see some really cool stuff. We've actually removed the paywall and given you an option in which you can just be a member for free. But there are things behind that wall that not everyone can get. So hopefully you can be the one to go take advantage of it and start putting these funnels to work for you. So we'll see you next Friday, and if not Friday, then for Mailbag Monday, which you certainly have to be a member for to ask the question, but anyone can check it out. And if not Monday or Friday, then Whiteboard Wednesday. But either way, have a good weekend, and we'll see y'all next week. See ya.